be punished. You've been a very bad bird. And now I'm very disappointed in you.
This show doesn't have the chops like a regular show. That's why it only ran for 3 seasons. What happens when you get Tiffany Haddish speaking for 20 minutes? You get Tuca and Bertie. This is like a regular show from Timo. This is basically a regular show written by women. I would insert a line about this show having the same delivery of an Amy Schumer stand-up special, but I promise myself I won't punch down ever again. That would be cheap, just like Amy Schumer's humor. Okay, I'll stop. Tuca and Bertie is a show with these 2 birds and they're dealing with woes. One is outgoing and the other is a people pleaser who has no spine. She has this boyfriend who's using her and doesn't really like her. He is weird and thinks he's hotter than he really is. A classic case of being delusional to the core. Okay, Mr. Speckle isn't bad, he's aight. Sometimes, even though he's the most boring person in the whole city, no wonder she ends up crushing on the chef. I'm assuming this is a real thing girls go through, as in being bored of the predictable boyfriends. Now I low-key feel bad for Mr. Speckle. Bummer. This show is 2 broke girls' inferior little sister. That series did everything right, whereas this one belly flopped. You know what else belly flops? Kinda Snatched, starring Amy Schumer. Okay, I'm done dragging it. Tuca and Bertie is a failed attempt at remaking a regular show. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
This is the opposite of regular show. It's a show where 2 friends end up in messed up situations. How they end up in them is always due to a set of bizarre circumstances. The first episode of that series is about a piano that can send people to the moon. This show is nothing like its name. There's nothing regular about regular show. Tuca and Bertie is just that. Tuca and Bertie. I feel like this show brings nothing new to the table. I've seen this format before. It's not even that interesting. Hear me out. The Boondocks is about a black family in the suburbs. The Simpsons is about a dysfunctional American family that's yellow. Family Guy is about a dysfunctional family with a talking dog and a baby that hates his own mother. Those are some pretty unique selling points. Tuca and Bertie is about what? At its core, if you really think about it, regular show is about some dudes who work at the park but never do their job. Hence why they're always on the brink of getting fired by Benson. Tuca and Bertie suffering from what I like to call fanboy and chum syndrome. Sometimes they can be these stretched out plot points that just seem there to buy time, or there'll be moments when I'm watching it and I'm like, this isn't even remotely funny. The only reason I continue watching is because there will be that one episode that's so good it outweighs the mediocrity that I had to endure prior. At first I thought I just wasn't the target audience, but that can't be. I caught my first 300 subscribers on this channel talking about Euphoria. I was once addicted to Euphoria. I like 2 broke girls, so it isn't that I just don't get it. The truth is that the show is trying too hard to be different, so it ends up being generic. That's a real thing. There's a reason why a lot of adult animated series get cast into the shadow realm for all eternity. Think of 3 right now, any 3. I'm sure you thought of at least one of these. They've pretty much become the golden standard for adult animated series. They did this by basically having no competition at the time and pushing boundaries. You have to realize that once upon a time a show like Beavis and Butthead or King of the Hill was considered to be cruel, but that humor today wouldn't even really conjure up any real disgust amongst viewers. Series like Disenchantment, F is for Family, and Solar Opposites never really got the attention they deserve. Disenchantment is too Futurama and The Simpsons coded, F is for Family is too American Dad-esque, and Solar Opposites is just Rick and Morty but with aliens as the dysfunctional family. Netflix obviously tries with animation. That series has a good art style. It's one of those shows I'd put on in the background if I want white noise or I want something to help me fall asleep quickly. The adult animated sphere is hard to crack. J.G. Quintel tried to make another show and everyone called it Regular Show 2.0. Close enough failed because fans thought it was Mordecai just being a human and having adventures with his wife, but it has the same chops and comedy of Regular Show to the point where it's like, okay pal, you're trying to ride a wave that doesn't exist anymore. Futurama succeeded because it's not the same as The Simpsons. The whole premise and timeline isn't even close. That was probably the smartest thing Matt Groening did. JG fell into the trap of trying to replicate a formula that brought him immense success. You have to remember that before regular show, he was working on Flapjack, he was in the shadows, so I'm sure the willingness to think outside the box didn't even come to him. He just wanted to chase the success regular show brought him. There's an entire episode in Close Enough where the main character becomes Muscle Man. That's just an alternative concept to the Death Punches episode from the previously mentioned series. Audiences are always looking for something new. Go read about the purple cow theory. If you're lazy to search it up, it basically means stand out by doing some outstanding shit. The whole reason why Matt made The Simpsons yellow is so that when people were flicking through the channels, they'd be like, oh shit, do these people have jaundice or something? It got people talking. Oh, the show where the dad is a retard and suffering from a severe case of alopecia. The one where everyone's the same color as my piss. Yeah, I watch The Simpsons. The more I watched Tuca and Bertie, I genuinely started to ask myself, who's this for? And not me just being an asshole, I was genuinely trying to figure out who's the demo. This show doesn't rely on crude humor, it's no South Park, a show aimed at people who like degeneracy and chaos. It's not a show that's there to teach you about social class and a bunch of other things like the Boondocks. It's not a show that reignites your existential dread like BoJack Horseman. So what's the deal? The second episode is actually quite bittersweet. Bertie wants a promotion at work, but somehow it ends up being a lesson on sexual harassment. Her co-worker Dirk has a problem and always wants to cop a feel. Anyways, Tuca ends up helping Bertie come out of her shell and pushes her to ask for what she wants. At the end of the episode, she gets the promotion, but she can't go to see her boyfriend when she wants. Like, yeah, she's now getting way more money, but they're working her like a slave. So the moral of the story here is be careful what you wish for. That was a nice realistic message. There are a couple of these scattered throughout the series. Then there's entire episodes where I'm just like, bruh, what is the point of this? For example, the one about the bugs living in Tuca's pubic region. If you know, you know. The one caveat this show has is that it's not episodic. I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of the show. The series I mentioned before don't really have one central plot. In one episode of regular show, Mordecai might be down and out because his crush won't notice him. In the next episode, Rigby might be insecure because he doesn't have a high school diploma. Tuca and Bertie sometimes is just straight filler, and it's filler that's not good. Whereas with regular show, every episode was outlandish, but it was still intriguing. Because I guess it would center around all these different characters, there'd be some development and growth. Tuca and Bertie has inconsistency regarding its level of relatability or plot. Episode 7 is all about how Tuca is a virtual cam girl, and in a previous episode, Bertie wants to take pastry classes, and at the end of the episode, she just starts pleasuring herself because she has a thing for the chef. This tends to be a huge thing when a show has a primarily female audience. It deliberately tries to throw it in your face that it's a girl show. Mom barely did this. It's a show aimed at women, but that's one of my favorite series. Perhaps that's a testament to how good Chuck's knack for comedy is, or maybe Allison is just a phenomenal actress. Look, all I'm trying to say is that regular show is ultimately about fucked up friends doing fucked up shit in the park. The whole point of regular show wasn't about Mordecai's bad track record of fumbling women. That was an arc that only entered the conversation years down the line. Close Enough failed because it's about fucked up friends who happen to be adults failing to act their age. That's common now. There's nothing new about that premise, but a raccoon and a blue jay who work for a lonely gumball machine with anger issues, that was innovative. Also, a huge part of me thinks that the first season really did well on Netflix because at the time, Tiffany Haddish was trending. People were like, oh my god, that's the girl from Girls Trip. People were happy. So it was that thing of, oh, okay, Tiffany Haddish is voice acting now. Let's check that out. Plus, Tiffany Haddish has a really signature voice. She's cool. She's aight. Even though sometimes she says the craziest things, I think she just be rage baiting from time to time. Plus, Netflix is just bad at keeping animated series on the air. Look at what happened to Inside Job. That show is one of the first of its kind, but Netflix just cancelled it. This show was about deep state employees who are forever dealing with office drama whilst concealing secrets from American citizens. Like that episode with the lizard people was genius. Come on man, this is a conspiracy theorist's dream come true. I think at the end of the day, that's the real reason why this show got cancelled. It was on Netflix for one season, that was back in 2019, and it got praise from most people, and then they demanded that it gets renewed after cancellation, but eventually they ended up going to Cartoon Network and it was airing on Adult Swim. But you're not competing with other programs aimed for adults. It's kinda hard for that show to stand out on a network that primarily promotes shows aimed at a male demographic. You got Rick and Morty, etc, etc. Plus, when you already have those huge juggernauts on Adult Swim, it's kinda hard to get people to still care about your show when there's another series that aired before yours and it's already a household name. This show isn't bad, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to say that this show is abysmal. This show is good, for the most part. Like if I have pizza, I'm eating McDonald's, I can put on Tuca and Bertie, but I feel like sometimes it just has these one-liners, these zingers that are trying to be relatable and quirky, but it just ends up being too female-y for the sake of doing it. Yes, I said female-y. The one-liners aren't even girly, they're female-y. I get it. Maybe you can come at me in the comments and be like, you're not the target demo, it's fine. Even though I tried to prove my point earlier that I like Euphoria, I like Two Broke Girls, I like Mom. It's just like, it can be a little bit off-putting. Rick and Morty and those other shows that I mentioned earlier, like Regular Show, even though the main characters are male, they kinda can be watched by almost everyone. I think that was also a huge part of the appeal. Regular Show is not a show aimed at adults, it's for kids, so of course with the humor it could never be crude. That's why when the human version of Regular Show got cancelled, it wasn't a surprise. We've seen this before now, adults struggling to be adults. It's overplayed at this point. Regular Show is cursed with the same fate of Gumball. It's a show universally loved by everyone. Tuca and Bertie had a lot of potential. Look at all the nominations they received throughout the years. Unfortunately, being the run-up for a trophy doesn't mean much to a network if the viewership is slowly but surely declining throughout the years. The more I watched Tuca and Bertie, the more I wanted Inside Job to come back and Final Space. Netflix will cancel animated series after 1 or 2 seasons just to greenlight more and do the same thing all over again. It's a weird abusive cycle, and after all of this, Big Mouth still managed to become a Netflix titan. That's the world we're living in, I guess. Also, Tuca's the thickest bird I've ever seen. I'm just keeping it a buck.